Good evening. Welcome back to Jones & Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones, and we're having a very provocative conversation with Franklyn Butler. He's the chairman of Alive, and he's also the CEO, the group CEO of Cable Bahamas. It's been such a pleasure talking to you so far.
Thank you, Brian. It's been an honor to share a little bit of my story.
Yes, and so just before the break, we were talking about the Alive story, right? And you know, I must say it is refreshing to have choice as a Bahamian in the telecom space, right? Because first we grew up with one TV channel, the Z and S, and then we had a variety on cable. Now we have choice in telecoms as well. But I know it wasn't an easy beginning, right? Couldn't have been easy coming into this market in the privatization period. So perhaps you could share some of that story, some of the perhaps challenges which led to your ultimate success as one of the major players here.
Yeah, thank you. I think, Brian, the best way to describe it is really a story of David and Goliath, right? Where we had BTC, who was traditionally a government-run corporation that eventually was sold to Cable and Wireless. If I set the stage, Leon Williams, my good friend, was the then CEO. Very well connected to the political directorate at that time. Mm-hmm. And then it was us at Cable Bahamas who at different times had a very different relationship with the government. And I think even as a part of the privatization committee, our challenge was how do we convince the government of the day that we were going to do what we said? Because depending on who you speak to, there were always doubts around whether Cable Bahamas had fulfilled its obligation when it rolled out its fixed network. So I just set that for context of what we were taking on at that time. Then we found ourselves winning a mobile license. And I remember, even as I took my role at Cable, and I said to them, what are the real issues? We have to, one, build relationship with the political directorate. We have to connect with the hearts and minds of Bahamians. We need to really develop a world-class service in terms of telecommunications infrastructure and world-class customer service. And so we worked with the then CEO to make sure that those became brand pillars and to differentiate the brand from the traditional Cable Bahamas by calling it Alive. And so we had this wonderful motif of different colors that represented the different islands of the Bahamas and its natural beauty, which at the time was revolutionary. And people were, wow, this was something that's very unique, because there was always this quasi-association with Cable Bahamas. And we did all we can to really create a separate brand image that was really around transformation and innovation and really making sure we connected to the hearts and minds of every Bahamian. And that was really the backdrop and the focus that we set, because I was a part of the original branding committee that even chose the name Alive. And I think it was literally 2 days. I think Muhammad Ali, we were choosing the brand. We were at a meeting room in Greycliff, and Muhammad Ali died. And we were looking at Live and Alive. And there's a famous email at that time that we thought just represented so much of the spirit of Muhammad Ali. That we got an email from the CEO, I think the Sunday after Muhammad Ali died on the Friday, that says, Ali, Ali, alive. And that was really one of the things. And a series of quotes by Muhammad Ali that focused on the power of your mind. And once you can dream this, that you could achieve it, right? And so he had this series of emails, I don't remember the exact details, that really acted as the inspiration, Muhammad Ali's life. And that's why if you even go into the Alive office, we would have held several commemorative celebrations of the life of Ali. And we actually have quotes in the Muhammad Ali throughout the office that really acted as the inspiration of really taking the David fight to the Goliath. And in the early days, I remember even as we launched Alive, we delivered a cake to the then Leon Williams to congratulate him that we now had competition and the game was on. Meanwhile, he was in the paper welcoming us to BTC country. So this really became an exciting proposition. Needless to say, Bahamians, I think, like new things, but also are skeptical until your network has had an opportunity to be tested. And so we really focused on this high data quality network. And so anybody that got on the live service got these incredible speeds that I think really, you had the early adopters who found, like, listen, this network was off the chain. And again, for context, if you had a WhatsApp, you used to have buffering. You couldn't get a video image on the competitor's phone at the time. So for us to provide this level of choice and this freedom that allowed you, like, literally when you got a WhatsApp, like, it came through right away, people were blown away at the level of quality of the network. And then, of course, every time we got a new subscriber, we'd phone out and welcome them to live and just do things that just made just such an incredible impact on our customers, that the journey of their live story just went from strength to strength. And as we got more involved in the community and giving and really trying to connect with every strata of society to let them know about the great work that we're doing at Alive, I think we really transformed, is the only way to say it. We transformed the Bahamian telecommunications market. We supported the arts and culture. We were at the forefront of driving, innovation in a way that the Bahamas probably has never seen before, with even these high-speed wireless internet boxes that we even used during the pandemic and throughout, different disasters. And then, of course, our response in Hurricane Dorian was one that I think the Bahamian people really said, listen, these guys are serious. If that network worked in Abaco, and I think even today, I remember touching down in Grand Bahama and Abaco after the storm, and these women and men who didn't know, and they said, listen, you all from Alive? I mean, literally they would hug you and tears in their eyes and say, listen, only because I had my Alive on did I actually live. And so the definition of Alive and its nature, it really kind of manifested itself through
literal.
Exactly. It became a literal choice for people and for Bahamians. And so when you look at the work that we did and we heard those stories, it was one that, for me, and I think for the CEO at the time and all of us executives, we recognized that this was just not about telecoms. This was really about having impact on people's lives and understanding the importance of having good quality infrastructure, good quality network, and really being able to have a level of trust that your customers and consumers recognized and appreciated in a way that I don't think we've ever seen before. So that journey is one that still gives me goosebumps. It's a combination of goosebumps and tears because you never really think about the impact that some of these simple pieces of infrastructure have on people's lives or death. And in this context, what we built at Alive has been one of the things that's really been something I'm exceedingly proud of, and something that I think Bahamians as a whole should be very proud of and thankful for those of the political directors who had the foresight to liberalize telecommunications in the Bahamas.
Well, you should be proud. Certainly have had a tremendous impact. What does this impact look like in numbers? Like any statistics about the current state of Alive you can share with us? Yeah,
so this is information that's available by IRCA. I think we're very close to 50% market share on a subscriber basis relative to BTC. And in 5 years, we're at a point where we are almost beyond operational break even. We are now just continuing to grow the business to make sure we can cover the debt load and that we have in the business. And so we have had an incredible run as Alive. Financially, I think we're very strong. From a revenue perspective, we continue to have very strong numbers, and I think as a public company, you can look at the statistics of our parent company, KO Bahamas, that I'm the CEO of, and you can see that revenue is growing, EBITDA is growing nicely. There's a return to net income profitability. So if you watch the charts for the last, I would say, 4 to 6 quarters, there's clearly a trend there. And I would invite any of our investors to monitor that trend, because I think it speaks to a future that's very bright, a future that speaks to strength as a Bahamian organization, a future that, quite frankly, we've turned the corner from, because there have been times when there were doubts around our ability to turn that business around. And the work that we've done, particularly I was involved in when we sold Summit Broadband back in, I think it was 2020 and 2019. That was the largest single capital markets transaction where a Bahamian entity sold a business for $300 million, right? So that's something, even as we think about the Alive story, as the group CEO, we had the Alive story going, and we were trying to delever and de-risk this business at Cable Bahamas. And so the success of that sale of Summit Broadband has really set us up for an incredible, hopefully, ending.
Well, I think it's probably not even the beginning of the end for you. But in terms of your future plans, right? You mentioned that the future is very bright. What makes you believe that the future is bright for Alive?
Because as we set out to really again think about, anybody remember minutes and top up? People, but now you buy plans.
That's it.
Like, that's an innovation of Alive. Our competitors didn't have plans. So we were the heart of innovation. And what makes me excited about the future is we continue to be the heart of innovation. We continue to work with our Chief Innovations Officer, Gravette Brown, and working on products like The List, which is a kind of loyalty app that you can have on your phone, and it gives you discounts to major retailers across the length and breadth of the Bahamas. And we've had a tremendous uptick in this, and so we want to find ways to continue to grow this innovation, to really drive the digital transformation of the Bahamas in a way that we are not just enablers, but we are actually influencers. Because to have good infrastructure is one thing, but to really influence the adoption of mobile banking and all the other things that we've been doing. And so we've been working on The List. We have even an app that's called the Patch app, which allows you to keep track of your COVID results. And so we've been working with the private sector, and we've had quite a few customers who have been using it across certain resorts to keep track of negative or positive COVID tests for their employees. In addition to the Patch and The List, we also have the Alive Discover app, which is really virtual reality, whereas if I had a map here of the city of downtown, you can put your phone over and you can see the statue of Samailo. You can see the National Art Gallery and really get a little bit of a historical insight into how the city of Nassau works and flows, and we did the same thing in Bimini. These are incredible innovations that, unfortunately, in part due to the pandemic, we have not been able to leverage. And as we come out of this COVID season that we thought was only going to be a year, but has obviously been extended, we are excited about these innovations and really taking these to the next level, because this idea of augmented reality is here to stay as we think about Web3 and what's happening with Web3 and technology, as we think about what's happening with NFTs and some of the space around cryptocurrencies and stuff.
Right,
We were
metaverses.
The metaverses. We
Yes.
were there 2-3 years ago. And we want to make sure that we can continue to play our role in driving the digital transformation of the Bahamas through our innovations and these specialty apps.
Well, after all, the digital economy runs on telecoms,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, you already are essentially the enabler, the digital services provider.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
And so this is one of the things that we set out. I mean, so even from a group perspective, while Alive was doing it, our mission for 2022, believe it or not, was to be the leader in enabling connected lifestyles and experiences. And I think on every metric, by the end of this year, we'll be able to say that we have achieved literally being the leader being the leader in enabling connected lifestyles and experiences. Wow. Because we already know we have more revenue than our competitor. We are connecting as many, if not more, islands. We've got more EBITDA. We have, by every metric, set out to achieve certain goals. And I think this year we will memorialize that in the echelons of history and telecoms in the Bahamas.
Wow. And so in terms of your growth plans, your objectives, your targets, what is your, let's say, short-term milestones you're gunning for as a firm?
Yeah, so I think as an organization, we do have some challenges. I think really getting clarity around what the role is for 5G is one that is top of mind for me as a CEO.
Absolutely.
What is the future of 5G? And I think we are aligned with our competitor and the government of the Bahamas around collectively creating a strategy around 5G.
Okay.
And so we'll see where that takes us. I mean, very recently we had some meetings and discussions as it relates to the investment in 5G and what does that mean for the Bahamas. So that's certainly top of mind. Secondly, for us, our focus is around improving our core on-island capacity, so distribution to people's homes, and we will be embarking on fiber to the home to have rolled out throughout the whole island of New Providence. When we rebuilt Abaco completely fiber to the home. So anybody who is in the area of Marsh Harbor and where the Hurricane Dorian had its biggest impact in Abaco will now have fiber directly to their homes, which is really transformational, and we think sets up the Bahamas competitively for world-class connectivity. And we also, in fairness to our competitor, they have been doing very similar things, I think, in Abaco and to some extent in New Providence. But as we say, our network works and people want good quality service. And as we roll out and expand our fiber to the home, Bahamians across the length and breadth of the Bahamas can be assured that not only will you have fiber connectivity, but you'll have fiber connectivity that works.
And let me ask you about your relationship with your competitor, right? With BTC, I guess they call it 800-pound gorilla in the room. You have managed to actually take a lot of market share away from them. But you do have, I guess there's some areas in which you still have to collaborate, right or wrong?
Absolutely. So, BTC is best way to describe it has really been the Goliath. I mean, and has a rich history, has really acted as, the people's telecommunications company up until we arrived. And so we can never take their contribution to the Bahamas for granted. And honestly, if we are going to be serious about developing infrastructure for the future, I think there's more partnerships that need to happen with our competitor, even while we compete on your doorstep. And so, I've personally taken the lead even while the former CEO, Mr. Sinclair, was there, to lead certain conversations, I guess, on behalf of the industry with them around 5G, around looking at taxation and how do we deal with OTT providers. We've had some conversations in conjunction with the regulator. And even yesterday we had a combined meeting with the regulator around, how do we see 5G, how do we work together? And so the spirit between Alive and Cable and BTC has been much more cooperative on the back end. Obviously we fight for every customer and every connection on your doorsteps, but there are certain synergies around sharing of infrastructure, around creating resilience and redundancy, whether that's sharing generators or tower sites in Family Islands, that we've been having a lot of cooperation. I mean, in fact, in Abaco, we collaborated on running a fiber backbone from the north to the south of Abaco, and that was a joint project that we led from a Cable Bahamas perspective. And so, again, we compete, but wherever it makes sense to leverage resources, I am personally committed to working with my counterpart at BTC to make sure that we do what makes sense for the benefit of the Bahamian people.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, competition is healthy for economic growth and development.
Absolutely.
So there's been some net benefits to the Bahamian population as a result. But before we wrap up, Frankie Butler, as a lot of people know you're more than just Alive, right? You're more than Cable Bahamas. You're actually a very active corporate citizen. Tell us a bit about some of your other boards that you serve on, some other areas of interest, where you want to see an impact.
Yeah. So I guess the questions you're asking me is to share a little bit more about myself from a corporate perspective. I'm also the chairman of AML Foods, we own and operate the Solomon's and Solomon's Fresh Markets, Cost Right, and Domino's franchises here in the Bahamas. And so we have continue to again drive innovation in supermarkets, with fresh markets, good quality product. Obviously, from time to time, quality comes at a price, and I think just given what's happening with supply chains around the world, this is a tough time even for us to be in business to provide the right level of product at the right price when we have inflation. I think the U.S. reported December or January inflation of 7%, which is unheard of.
Wow.
And so this is having a real consequence on the cost of food in the country. So that's one of the things I do. I'm also on the board of APD, which is our Port Development Company.
Mm-hmm.
And so I serve as an independent director on that board. And then I'm also on the board of Royal Fidelity's Bahamas Property Fund.
Mm-hmm.
And just given my history with real estate and my own family business, where we have developed, and I would say probably the largest real estate developers in Grand Bahama, outside of what I would call the Port Group, because we've got pretty close to almost 200,000 square feet of space under rent in Freeport. And so, we are excited about hopefully opening the Solomons downtown Freeport by the middle of the year. And again, I say we in the sense that I'm using both my hats, one as landlord and our family business, and as AML opening a 20,000 square foot store downtown Freeport. And anybody who knows Freeport knows how important having a supermarket downtown is to the redevelopment of the city of downtown. And so we don't, at least I don't, focus on the wealth but the impact, and to really be able to, as a Bahamian investor, drive the transformation and the redevelopment of the city of Freeport excites me. Is it a bit nerve-wracking because you feel like you're on your own and maybe you don't always have the right level of support from some of the key stakeholders? Yes, but I do believe that when you do good, sometimes God aligns your stars, and so we're hopeful that He will continue to align our stars. And so that's a little bit what I do on the AML and the Bahamas Property Fund side. Now, the Bahamas Property Fund is a Royal Fidelity fund that is a very similar business to ours. So it's about attracting tenants and looking for high-quality office and commercial spaces to lease. And so, that's something I'm very familiar with. I mean, that's really where I kind of cut my teeth when we developed, after my dad passed away, the shops at Carmichael, where Scotiabank is on Carmichael Road. And so I was very instrumental in working with Burger King and Scotia and most of those tenants that now operate on Carmichael. So,
Wow.
Property development is one of the things I personally enjoy, and a little bit about what I do.
Tremendous. Well, looks like your hands are full, but you're on the right path, and I hope that your stars remain aligned, because you're definitely doing some big things in this country. So thank you so much for joining me today on Jones & Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones. Have a good evening.